Sunday, February 2nd, 2025. Part 2, Sunday sermon entitled, Turning to God for Health and Healing. This is based on the text found in Deuteronomy 7 and 15. It says, God will remove from thee all sickness. Part 2, Turning to God for Health and Healing. I want y'all to come on, go with me today. We have learned that those that wait on the Lord shall receive their strength. Those that wait on the Lord not might receive their strength, not could receive their strength, but they shall receive their strength. Just as you wait to be seen by your earthly doctor, I talked about it last week in part 1, about the necessity of sitting in a quiet waiting room, just like you wait for your earthly doctor, you must quietly wait for God to heal you. Furthermore, you should quiet your body and your soul before going to God with your health problems. People find quietness in many ways. My mother would love to go fishing to find quietness. And people have various different ways of finding quietness, but you know the best way you can make yourself quiet. Now remember, that is the first thing you must do if you want to turn to God for health and healing. Do so in a quiet place. Quiet your soul. Let's ask a few rather hard questions about your health and healing. First question is this: have you faced your health condition, or have you been afraid to learn the truth about your condition? That's number one. Number two, have you sought the best doctor you could find, the best doctor you can get? Number three, have you done as your doctor advised you to do? And finally, question number four is, have you made the changes in your life or in your living and lifestyle that the doctor has ordered? Those are hard questions that must be answered. We all have heard it said that God helps those that helps themselves. And yes, God will help you with your problems, but He too wants to know what you have done. Think about these things as you sit quietly in God's waiting room. What have you done? Many times is at the point where earthly doctors' remedies end, that God's healing began. Almost every wise doctor will tell you that his work involves the process of putting the body of his patient into the best condition so that healing forces of nature, so that natural healing forces may work without obstacles. One doctor said, I treated the patient, but God cured her. Watch this. The two strong forces that will help you, two strong forces that will help your body receive natural healing. Two forces. The first one is faith. Strong force. The second force that's going to help your body to heal naturally is prayer. And you can bank on those. You can bank on those two. I'm opening up my Bible to the book of Hebrews. It's chapter number 11. To try and show you exactly what the Bible says that faith is. Then I'm going to give you the definition of prayer too, but this is what it says in Hebrews chapter number 11 and verse 1. It says, now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Period. I'm going to read it again. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, comma, the evidence of things not seen. Period. Faith is one of the strongest forces that will enable your body to heal naturally. And while I'm in the book of Hebrews, let me just say from what it says in verse 6, it says, by faith, Abel offered unto God a more excellent sacrifice than Cain. By faith, Enoch was translated. This is verse 5 of chapter 11 of Hebrews. By faith, Enoch was translated that he should not see death. That's not all. It says in verse 6, and this is vital, it says, but without faith, it is impossible to please him. You cannot please God without faith. I'm going to read that entire 6th verse. It says, but without faith, it is impossible to please him. For he that cometh to God must believe that he is, comma, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. You want to turn to God for help and healing? You start by removing the obstacles, and you do that through the use of faith and prayer. Look at verse 7 there in Hebrews 11. It says, by faith, Noah, being warned of God of things to come, of things not yet seen. That's not all. Verse 8, by faith, Abraham, when he was old, called to go out. I'm going to hit on one or two more of these by faith verses. Number 11. This is for my female friends. By faith, It said, through faith also, Sarah herself received strength to conceive seed. This faith is a powerful thing. And we can't get health and healing from God without it. By faith, verse 17, Abraham, when he was tried, offered up Isaac. I'm going to hit one more verse and then quit. Oh, by faith, I'm going to, there it is right there, verse 29. By faith, they passed through the Red Sea as by dry land, which the Egyptians are saying to do so were drowned. This is what I was looking for. And I'm going to close on this. By faith, the walls of Jericho fell down after they were compassed about 7 times. Y'all can take that on to Washington, D.C. Now, let us consider prayer. We know what faith is. It's the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. But, Reverend, what is prayer? Let me tell you. I tell you what prayer is not. Prayer is not talking and listening to God. Prayer is much more than talking and listening to God. It is that in part, but it's so much more. Prayer, my friend, is communion with God. I'm going to say that again. Prayer is communion with God. The Bible tells us that we should pray without ceasing, that we should pray always. And you can pray always when you are always in communion with God. Pray to God because in Him we live, we move. In Him we have our being. I'm going to give you a quick contrast between 2 doctors. There was a doctor that said to me, "You're over 70 years old. Do you think you're going to live forever?" I fired that doctor. But recently I went to another doctor, and I had my Humana driver to drive me to the doctor's office in Tuscaloosa. He's a surgeon. Had to do some work on my trigger finger surgery. And I'd never met him before. But when I found his name, I looked him up online and got acquainted with him. And when I got to his office there, I had my briefcase with me. And he asked me, he said, "Why do you have your briefcase?" I said, "Doc, I'm using every minute that I can to write a sermon. My high school classmate just died and his wife asked me to preach his funeral sermon. And I want to use all my spare time here in the waiting room and riding up here and back home to write the sermon." You know what that doctor said? He said, "I'm going to pray for you." Great difference. And the doctors, if he going to pray for me, he said, "Listen, I'm a Christian. I'm right with you." The other doctor said, "Well, you think you're going to live forever?" No, he's not a Christian doctor. Let me move on. Prayer is communion with God, and the effectual, fervent prayer, the targeted, pointed, flaming, fiery prayer of the righteous availeth much. Faith and prayer. These two can put your soul and your body in the best condition for healing to take place. Let's break it down a little bit. Let's break down the process. And before I conclude the message, I'm going to inject the word courage. So be on the lookout for the word courage. But let's break this healing process down so we can understand what actually takes place. Rule number one we learned last week was to get into a quiet place. A noisy, confused, frustrating place is no place to get healing, to seek healing. Get in a quiet place and wait for the great physician. Wait for God. In that waiting room, we must employ faith and prayer, as did our great heroes and our spiritual ancestors. But when we break it down and get to the bottom, turning to God for health and healing, it's all about opening our souls and our hearts to God. The fact is, and let me break it down to you, finish breaking it down. The fact is, many physical diseases are either caused by prolonged worry. Many physical diseases are caused by fear. Many physical diseases are caused by hate. Many physical diseases are caused by envy. And some of them are caused by uncertainty. My friend, if you are worried about your health, or if you're worried about anything else, this is what God wants you to do. Cast your worries upon the Lord. Cast your burdens on him. Don't lay your burdens, cast them on the Lord. And if you're afraid of the future, are you afraid of the future, my friend? Put the future in God's hands. If there let me ask you this. Is there anyone that you hate or anyone that you envy? Tell you what you need to do if you want to lean on God for health and healing. You need to drop the hate. You need to drop the envy. You need to drop the grudge and make yourself forgive. It's almost time for me to get out of this message, part 2. And I think I can wrap it all up in 3 messages. By next Sunday, I should be able to finish it. But if you worried, whatever it is, Cast your burdens on the Lord. If you're afraid of the future, put your future in God's hands. And if you have any hate or any envy, any anger, any grudge, force yourself to forgive. Now, I'm almost done with part 2. And it's now time, what I would call, it's now calculation time. I'm going to draw the line and add it all up. When you do all of these things, abandon hate, fear, envy, jealousy, when you do all these things, here's what you're doing. You are removing obstacles which lie in the way of your health. My friend, listen. God does not violate any of his natural laws to bring his health to you. God wants you to have health, but you must learn that it is you who will have to change, not God, not God's law. You will have to change. But still, God does make it possible for you to gain health through his laws, and often in spite of conditions that work against his laws. The vital question is this: how does God help? When we turn to God for help and healing, how does God's help tend to my case? How does it happen? How does God's help promote my healing? Here's how it happens. It happens by you releasing in your own body powers of courage, powers of recovery, which you may never have thought existed. Powers of courage, powers of recovery. Now, as I go to my seat, I ask you to look back over your life. Weren't there times, many times, that you said to yourself, following some great illness or some great trouble, haven't you said many times to yourself, whew, that was tough. God knows how I got through it. You ever said that? Well, you were right. Yes, God knows how you got through it. And he knows because it was he who gave you the power of getting through it. He did it, and he alone. Turning to God for health and healing. Now unto him that is able to keep us from falling and present us faultless before the presence of his glory with exceeding great joy. Now unto him, the only wise God, to whom be glory, majesty, dominion, and power, both now, henceforth, and forevermore. My Master, will you be so kind as to bless the tie that binds our hearts together in Christian love? Do it today. Goodbye.